Hello, I'm Ryan McEachern, and welcome to our special budget preview edition of MSTA Canada The Dig. In this three-part series, we will be discussing the upcoming federal budget and the impact it may have on the exploration mining sector. Today is part two of our three-part series with our guest Brendan Marshall, Vice President of the Mining Association of Canada. In part one, we spoke with Ian London, Executive Director from the Canadian Critical Minerals and Metals Alliance, about the importance of Canada having a broader industrial strategy that encourages investment and development through the whole value chain of critical minerals. And as he mentioned, the budget should be bold and audacious for the country to fully benefit from the opportunity in front of us. There are some key federal government policy directions that can set up the mining sector to help Canada become a world leader in this new global net zero economy. And who better to speak about this than Brendan Marshall? Hi, Brendan. Welcome back to The Dig.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be back.
Yeah, and I know you're a very busy man and getting lots of attention in the recent weeks with regards to things. And next week is very important for us as well, as Monday, the federal budget's going to be announced on April 19th. So, in terms of that, what are some of the policy directions that relate to our sector that we should be paying attention to?
Well, thanks for the question. I think there are a few in particular that will be relevant for the upcoming budget next week. And one of them is the government's actions to address climate change and the programs that are being put in place to support decarbonization efforts. There was a lot of work been done in that space recently, and I don't anticipate that level of activity slowing down. Another piece would be sort of a subset of that, specifically in the battery electric vehicles space. That topic was highlighted in the updated 2030 climate plan, and we expect that to remain an ongoing priority for the federal government and also to be reflected in Budget 2030. And then another key area is on critical minerals, generally speaking. And we talked about that in particular on our last discussion together. And it's largely anticipated, not just by our sector, but by a number of others, that there will be programs and policies announced in Budget 2021 to help position Canada for success in that area too.
So with regards to that, then what kind of measures in the upcoming budget do we see them positioning?
Sure. Well, let's start with the critical minerals piece first. So, in building on our recent discussion, there's been a big push to try and reshore North American production of rare earths in particular, but also other critical minerals to help insulate against current levels of supply chain vulnerability for these materials. And for the listeners, rare earths might seem like an opaque term. These are minerals, metals that are in almost every high-tech product that you can imagine, whether that's your iPhone, your iPad, the screen that you are listening to this podcast on right now. Also, clean energy technologies such as battery electric vehicles, wind turbines, etc. And so the growing demand for these materials presents Canada an opportunity to establish and grow a supply chain in this space. But we're starting from a tabula rasa or a blank slate on this topic. So the types of measures for critical minerals that we anticipate in the budget are going to be targeted at establishing projects at various segments of the supply chain, and then scaling them to a point where they can operate and the supply chain as a whole can operate sustainably and independently from the supports that will help establish it. The next area that I think is always going to be a perennial focus for the mining industry and also for the federal government is infrastructure. And that dovetails with decarbonization considerations as well. In the Canadian mining industry, we have a number of operations that currently are located off-grid And that means that they don't have access to power infrastructure of any kind, and therefore are diesel reliant. And so programs that would help them decarbonize are something that MAC has been working with decision makers on establishing, and something that we'll be looking for. But also trade enabling infrastructure as well. If we think about the volume of minerals and metals that are going to be needed in this transition economy, we're going to be and are looking at an expansion of our sector, our mining sector in Canada. And that is increasingly located in remote and northern regions. And so opening up those regions to be able to be responsibly mined is critical for Canada's industry looking forward. So we're always looking for those types of measures in federal budgets as well. And then finally, we in the BEV supply chain piece, I think that a significant start was made in the SIF Net Zero Accelerator, which was announced in the updated 2030 climate plan. But I think a number of comments into federal government have characterized that as a very positive start, but one that needs to be built on and grown over time. So, while it's uncertain, we'll be looking to see if the federal government is going to be making any new programmatic announcements in that space in budget 2021.
Well, that's a lot, Brendan. And to your point, I think when we talk about the supply chains and the infrastructure part, there's a huge opportunity, I think, for our country in terms of just from the source of the raw material, metals and minerals, all the way down to the assembly plants of the automotive industry and everything in between. And you've mentioned all those pieces, and I think that's kind of, you brought up another piece that's kind of interesting, is the infrastructure component, which is a little different from what the United States vision is in terms of revitalization. We're actually talking about brand new as well in our concept of, it's a big nation, and a lot of this infrastructure is going to be new. So it's going to be a very interesting budget, and look forward to hearing what it has to say. And hopefully we hear some of what you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think so. And look, maybe something that we can look forward to is getting back together for a discussion after the budget and doing a little bit of a digestion of what was put in the window, how that reflects sector priorities, and what that new information means for our industry in Canada going forward.
You read my mind, Brendan. So after next week, let's definitely catch up and do a post-game review, if you will, of the budget that we hear on Monday. So again, thanks a lot, Brendan, for taking the time to be with us.
Happy to do so. Take care.
You too. I'd like to thank Brendan Marshall for joining us on part 2 of our 3-part special budget preview edition of MSTA Canada The Dig. Next up is part 3 with Jeff Killeen from the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, where we discuss the upcoming federal budget from the lens of exploration and development. One quick note to our viewers, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to get access to all the episodes of The Dig. And you can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter at Mining Suppliers. Until then, I'm Ryan McEachern. Take care and stay safe.